안녕하세요.
The studio cameras once again focused on Oprah Winfrey, who maintained an intense and attentive expression. The audience waited, immersed in the atmosphere of anticipation. Donald Trump, seated with his usual confident posture, prepared to face the final questions of an interview that had already made history. Mr. President, we've reached the crucial moment of this conversation. What can we expect in the coming years of your administration? Trump adjusted his tie and smiled before responding. Oprah, I can say with absolute certainty, the United States has never been stronger than it is now, and we will continue on this path of success. We are cutting taxes, strengthening our industry, creating jobs, and above all, giving power back to the people. In the coming years, you will see America reach an entirely new level of prosperity. Our focus is on fearless growth and ensuring that every citizen feels the benefits of the changes we are making. The audience reacted with applause and murmurs of approval. Oprah did not hesitate and moved directly to the next point. But Mr. President, there are growing concerns about the increasing polarization in the country. How does your administration plan to unite Americans rather than deepen divisions? Trump leaned slightly forward, emphasizing his words. Oprah, I have always said that my administration works for all Americans. Unfortunately, the mainstream media and certain groups try to create divisions where they don't exist. But look, our work is focused on results. When people have jobs, security, and know their government is working for them, differences start to fade. We are uniting the country through progress, security, and economic growth. Our administration has promoted dialogue, brought communities together, and encouraged free speech, but always with responsibility. Oprah furrowed her brow slightly, pondering the next question. And what about international relations? Do you believe your foreign policy will continue to ensure that the United States remains a world leader? Trump did not hesitate. Absolutely. Oprah, we are restoring respect on the international stage. Our allies know they can trust America again. Our adversaries know they cannot challenge us without consequences. America is strong. Because we have strong leadership, we will continue strengthening our alliances, promoting fair trade, and ensuring that our interests are always protected. Recently, we reinforced our commitment to NATO, established new trade agreements, and ensured that our economy continues leading the world. We are creating a new era of cooperation, but also of mutual respect. The audience reacted, divided between applause and discussions. Oprah seized the moment for one final question. Mr. President, what legacy do you hope to leave at the end of your administration? Trump took a deep breath before responding. I want Americans to remember this administration as the one that restored strength, pride, and prosperity to our country. I want them to look back and see that we did what was necessary to make the United States stronger than ever. That is my commitment and my legacy. I want future generations to see this period as the rebirth of American greatness. We will continue innovating, creating opportunities, and ensuring that the values that made this nation great remain alive. Oprah nodded, closing the interview with an intense look into the camera. She knew this conversation would go down in history, and that the debates about the future of Trump's administration were only just beginning. For a moment, the studio fell silent before the audience erupted into applause. It was evident that this interview had not only clarified the administration's plans, but it also set a new chapter in the political history of the United States. The city of Seoul was an illuminated chessboard beneath the darkness of the night. From the top of the Kang Group skyscraper, Kang Woo observed the urban landscape with a calculating gaze, his fingers tapping lightly on the glass desk. The silence in his office was almost absolute, interrupted only by the distant ticking of the clock on the wall. There, at the pinnacle of the empire he had built with an iron fist, he felt untouchable. But that illusion wouldn't last long. The door opened without warning, and Ji-eun entered with determined steps. Unlike the other employees, who hesitated even to breathe near the feared CEO, she showed no fear. On the contrary, there was a firmness in her eyes that irritated Kang Woo deeply. Without ceremony, she dropped a stack of documents onto his desk. If you intend to fire half the staff, you should at least consider the consequences. Or have you already planned to run everything alone, President Kang? Kang Woo raised an eyebrow. Her audacity bordered on insubordination. Few dared to question him, and even fewer survived after doing so. He leaned back in his leather chair, interlacing his fingers under his chin. Funny, his voice was low, yet laced with a veiled threat. I don't recall asking for your opinion. Ji-ah tilted her head, a barely perceptible smile on her lips. And I don't recall being hired to stay silent when I see my boss making a mistake. The silence that followed was thick, heavy with tension. Kang Woo's eyes narrowed. This woman was different. He knew how to recognize an opponent when he saw one. And at that moment, he didn't just see an employee, he saw someone who wouldn't bow to him. He stood up slowly, his movements precise, meticulously calculated. His stature commanded an overwhelming presence, and anyone else would have retreated at his approach. But Ji-ah stood firm, even as he stopped mere inches from her. You have courage, I'll admit that. His voice was low, almost a whisper. He leaned in slightly, and for a brief instant his eyes caught the defiant gleam in hers. But courage doesn't mean you will win. Ji-ah smiled. A sharp smile, one of someone who knew exactly what they were getting into. We'll see about that. The air between them grew thick, as if something on the verge of exploding hung in the atmosphere. But before either of them could break the moment, 3 sharp knocks on the door interrupted them. The secretary entered, holding a black envelope in his hands. Mr. Kang, another one has arrived. Kang Woo's expression hardened instantly. His eyes, once sharp and full of control, darkened with something different. A shadow of concern, perhaps even fear. Ji-ah caught the change and frowned. Who sent it? Her voice was cold, but enough to make the secretary hesitate. No sender. But he glanced quickly at Ji-ah before continuing. It's about your past. Kang Woo's heart gave an almost imperceptible jolt. His past. Something he had spent years burying. Something no one should know about. And yet, here was proof that someone was digging up his secrets. Ji-ah watched him closely. It took her only seconds to realize that Kang Woo, the unshakable man who always seemed in control, was, for the first time, hesitant. Something was about to happen. Something big. And Ji-ah had the feeling that, one way or another, she was about to be pulled into this mystery. The night in Seoul felt darker than usual. Kang Woo stood before his office window, the black envelope still sealed in his hands. His name was written in golden letters, a cruel irony for something he suspected would bring trouble. The glass reflected his tense expression, his eyes filled with memories he had tried to forget. Ji-ah observed everything in silence, arms crossed, making no effort to hide her curiosity. Are you going to open it, or just keep staring at it like it's about to explode? Ji-ah broke the silence, her usual defiant tone cutting through the tension. Kang Woo turned the envelope between his fingers, hesitating for a second before tearing open the red seal. The thin paper slid between his fingers, revealing nothing but a single note with a phrase written in ancient Korean. The truth always finds a way. His heart pounded in his chest. Very few people knew that phrase. It was part of a past he had buried years ago. His gaze lifted to Ji-ah, and for the first time, there was no arrogance or superiority in his eyes, only uncertainty. Do you know this phrase? He asked, his voice lower than he intended. Ji-ah tilted her head, studying the paper before shaking her head. No, but judging by your expression, it seems like I should. The silence between them stretched. Kang Woo felt his breathing slow, as if his body already knew that this note was more than just a simple message. Ji-ah took a step closer, her brows furrowed. Kang Woo, what does this mean to you? He took a deep breath. He didn't want to talk about the past, but something in her eyes made him consider sharing a fragment of that truth. Before he could respond, his phone vibrated on the desk. A message appeared on the screen. The game has begun. I hope you're ready. A chill ran down his spine. This wasn't just a note, it was a warning. Ji-ah moved even closer, her eyes flashing with interest. Looks like someone wants to play with you. The question is, do you play back or run? Kang Woo inhaled deeply, closing his fist around the note. Running had never been an option, but he knew that, whatever this game was, Ji-ah was now caught in it whether she wanted to be or not. The night in Seoul seemed to close in around Kang Woo. The weight of the note in his hands felt disproportionate to its size, as if it carried not just words, but the promise of a past he had never wanted to revisit. Beside him, Ji-ah remained silent, her dark eyes fixed on him, waiting for his reaction. He clenched his fist, crumpling the paper slightly. Slow, controlled breaths. The phrase written in ancient Korean echoed in his mind, connecting to memories he had buried beneath layers of power and emotional detachment. His gaze swept across the office, analyzing every detail as if searching for an escape route. "Are you going to tell me what's going on?" Ji-ah crossed her arms, keeping her tone controlled, though impatience was evident. Kang Woo didn't answer immediately. He walked over to the minibar in the corner of his office and poured himself a glass of whiskey. The golden liquid gleamed under the dim light, reflecting his clouded thoughts. Without looking at Ji-ah, he brought the glass to his lips and took a sip, feeling the warmth of the alcohol spread through his body. Sometimes the past should stay buried. His voice came out low, almost a whisper. Ji-ah frowned. "So this really is about you. Someone is stirring up your past, and you don't want to admit it." He let out a heavy sigh, meeting her gaze for the first time since the message arrived. Ji-ah didn't look away. There was something in her posture, in the way she stood her ground, that made Kang Woo feel she wasn't just another employee. "Ji-ah, if you knew even half of what happened before I became who I am today, you might prefer to keep your distance." She raised an eyebrow, defiant. "Who said I like distance?" Silence settled between them again, but it was no longer uncomfortable. It was charged with possibilities. Before either of them could say anything more, Kang Woo's phone rang. The name on the screen made his heart skip a beat. It was a name he hadn't seen in years. He exchanged a quick look with Ji-ah before answering. "Hello?" The voice on the other end was cold and precise. "Time's up, Kang Woo. You know what to do." The call ended before he could respond. He stared at the screen for a long moment, a mix of fury and unease crossing his features. Ji-ah, watching closely, took a step forward. "What happened?" Kang Woo closed his eyes for a brief second, before looking at Ji-ah again. "It looks like I have no choice anymore. The game has truly begun." He turned, picking up the note once more, reading the words over and over. The truth always finds a way. Suddenly, a noise outside the office caught his attention. Ji-ah heard it too and moved closer to the door, listening intently. Heavy footsteps approached. Kang Woo knew it was only a matter of time before whoever was toying with him decided to take things a step further. A firm, deliberate knock sounded on the door. "President Kang, we have a problem." Ji-ah glanced at Kang Woo, who tightened his grip around the note before slowly walking toward the door. Kang Woo felt the already thin air in his office grow even heavier as his footsteps echoed toward the door. His mind worked frantically, connecting the recent events, but nothing made sense. The past he had buried was clawing its way back to drag him under. He opened the door cautiously and found his assistant, Min-jae, standing there. His usually composed face now bore a palpable concern. "Mr. Kang, there's a man in the lobby demanding to speak with you. He says he knows the truth about Red Knight." The mention of that name made Kang Woo's blood run cold. Ji-ah, now standing beside him, looked at him with curiosity and a trace of suspicion. "What is Red Knight?" she asked, crossing her arms. Kang Woo didn't answer immediately. Instead, he turned to Min-jae. "Where is he now?" "At the main entrance. Security is trying to remove him, but he insists he has information you'll want to hear." Kang Woo took a deep breath and looked at Ji-ah again. She held his gaze, her expression unwavering, clearly unsatisfied with his silence. "If you want answers, you'd better come with me," he said, making his decision. Both took the private elevator down, the atmosphere between them thick with tension and expectation. The ground floor was busy, but near the entrance, a small commotion had formed. Security guards struggled to contain a thin, gray-haired man dressed in worn-out clothes. He gestured frantically, his eyes wide with urgency and fear. When Kang Woo appeared, the man stopped immediately and pointed a trembling finger at him. "You can't run from this, Kang Woo. The truth always finds a way." Ji-ah's eyes widened at the identical phrase from the note. Kang Woo, however, kept his expression unreadable. "Who are you? What do you know about Red Knight?" he asked, his voice colder than he intended. The man glanced around nervously, as if afraid of being overheard. His body trembled slightly, like someone constantly being watched. He leaned in closer to Kang Woo and Ji-ah, lowering his voice to a desperate whisper. "If you listen to me, you can save your life, but not here. You have to come with me." Silence settled over the scene. Ji-ah watched Kang Woo closely, waiting for his decision. The security guards remained alert, ready to intervene if the man tried anything reckless. "Where to?" Kang Woo narrowed his eyes. "A safe place," the man replied. "But you need to trust me. You do know they're watching you, right?" Ji-ah frowned. Her attention split between the tension evident on Kang Woo's face and the stranger's unsettling words. The air was thick with danger, as if one wrong choice could have irreversible consequences. "I'll go with you," Kang Woo finally said, his voice filled with resolve. For a brief moment, the man's eyes lit up before he turned and hurried through the revolving doors. Kang Woo followed, with Ji-ah right behind him, while Min Jae and the security team watched with wary expressions. Fate awaited them, and the mystery of Red Knight was only beginning to unravel. The black car glided through the busy avenue, carrying Kang Woo and Ji-ah away from Kang Group. The mysterious man, seated in the front passenger seat, remained silent, his eyes scanning the streets as if expecting to be followed. The driver, a middle-aged man with a watchful gaze, avoided asking questions, but Ji-ah could feel the tension thick in the air. "Are you going to tell us where we're going, or do you prefer to keep the suspense?" Ji-ah asked, crossing her arms. The man turned slightly toward her, his expression remaining unreadable. "A safe place." Kang Woo, who had been silent since they entered the car, finally spoke. "I don't believe in safe places. Who exactly are you?" The man took a deep breath, as if weighing the best way to answer. "My name is Park Sundae-ho. I was part of your old life, Kang Woo, the one you've been trying to forget. But you know that Red Knight never really stayed in the past." Ji-ah frowned. "Can you stop talking in riddles and explain what the hell Red Knight actually means?" Sundae-ho glanced at Kang Woo, as if waiting for permission to reveal something that had remained buried for a long time. Kang Woo's expression remained dark, but he gave a slight nod. Red Knight was a secret operation, something that should never have happened, but it did. And now, it seems someone wants to bring it back to light. The car entered a more isolated district, with narrow alleys and old buildings. Ji-ah watched the darkened streets pass by the window. There was an invisible weight in the air, here a scent of forgotten memories and buried secrets. When the car finally stopped in front of an abandoned warehouse, Sundae-ho stepped out. Kang Woo and Ji-ah followed without hesitation. "We need to talk without unwanted ears listening," Sundae-ho said, pushing open a rusted door that groaned in protest. Inside, the dim lighting cast unsettling shadows along the concrete walls. A worn-out table sat in the center of the space, covered with yellowed papers and a battered laptop. Sundae-ho pulled out a chair and looked straight at Kang Woo. "They are coming for you, and if you don't prepare yourself, it'll be too late." A chill ran down Ji-ah's spine. For the first time, she realized she was stepping into something far bigger than she had imagined. Kang Woo crossed his arms, his sharp gaze analyzing every detail around him. "Tell me everything, Sundae-ho. Who's behind this?" Sundae-ho slid a folder across the table. Kang Woo cautiously opened it, revealing old photographs, some of them burned at the edges. Ji-ah leaned in to look and held her breath, as she saw a younger Kang Woo surrounded by unfamiliar men. This photo was taken 10 years ago, the final night of the operation. Kang Woo ran his fingers over the worn paper, his eyes locking onto one of the faces in the background. His jaw tightened as he recognized a detail that had escaped him for years. "He was there?" "Yes," Sundae-ho confirmed. "And now he's back." The air grew suffocating with tension. Ji-ah realized that this moment was a turning point for Kang Woo. Something was being unearthed, something that could no longer be ignored. "We need to act before they find us first," Kang Woo said, closing the folder firmly. Sundae-ho nodded slowly. "In that case, we'd better be ready." Because this is only the beginning.
You're my eternal